He was shouting at me, I was shouting back at him. It wasn't nice, it wasn't pleasant at all. And he snapped, and he pushed me to the floor.
She's becoming a royal rock star.
And then
everything changed. There's a hierarchy of the family. You know, there's leaking, but there's also planting of stories. Having seen my family and the institution's part in constantly feeding the British press with lies, mistruths.
In a family known for keeping things royal, the last thing anyone expected was for Prince Archie to suddenly shake things up. During an unforgettable moment at King Charles III's coronation, Camilla's sharp words toward Meghan and Harry caught everyone's attention.
There was a war against Meghan to suit other people's agendas.
It's about hatred. It's about race.
It's a dirty game.
The tension was thick, but Archie's unexpected response took it to a whole new level. His bold move stunned the royal family and has left the world talking. What exactly did he do? In this video, we will reveal the bombshell Archie dropped after Camilla scolded Meghan and Harry.
Of the family and the tabloid press, those certain members have decided to get into bed with the devil, right?
The altercation at the coronation. The coronation of King Charles III was set to be one of the most important royal events in decades. It brought together the rich traditions of the monarchy and the grandeur expected of such a momentous occasion. Held in Westminster Abbey, the historic site was alive with golden regalia, choral hymns, and a global audience waiting to witness history unfold. Crowds lined the streets of London, waving flags and cheering as the royal procession arrived in all its splendor. Inside the Abbey, dignitaries and royals from across the world gathered under the towering arches to celebrate the new king. The Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Catherine, were at the heart of the event, joined by their 3 children. Prince George played a key role as one of the king's pages of honor, while Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis charmed the public with their composed behavior. So what went wrong at this coordinated gathering? This is just the beginning. We will be revealing more details. Meanwhile, Meghan and Harry's presence drew significant attention. Despite their decision to step back from royal duties, their attendance was closely watched.
Well, Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, are not working royals. They've made that repeatedly and screamingly clear to anyone who wants to hear it.
Meghan is in California right now, and you're here, and there's articles left and right about what is happening with these two. So is that a good thing for you in a way that there's so much interest in?
With them was their son, Prince Archie, making one of his most public appearances yet. As the ceremony began, the atmosphere in the Abbey was a mix of awe and tension. The royal family presented a picture of unity, but behind the scenes, relationships were not as harmonious as they appeared. Camilla, now crowned queen consort, held a prominent place in the ceremony. While her position had been officially recognized, it was no secret that her rise in the family had come with challenges. Among those was her dynamic with Meghan and Harry, which had often been described as strained. As the family moved to take their seats, subtle interactions hinted at deeper issues beneath the polished exterior.
I don't think that we can ever have peace with my family unless the truth is out there. We've apparently divorced maybe 10, 12 times as well. So everyone's just like, what?
Camilla's interactions with Meghan were particularly noticeable. Observers caught fleeting moments of tension as the 2 women exchanged brief glances. Meghan, seated beside Harry, maintained her poise, but appeared reserved throughout the early parts of the ceremony. Harry, seated close to his wife, seemed to be watching the proceedings with a mix of attentiveness and unease. Archie, seated between his parents, looked on curiously, occasionally whispering to his mother or shifting in his seat. The ceremony reached a solemn point as King Charles was formally seated on the throne. At this moment, the spotlight shifted briefly to the royal family. Lip readers and close observers later reported a quiet yet striking exchange. Camilla turned toward Meghan and Harry, her expression firm, and issued what appeared to be a subtle command. "Control him," she reportedly said, gesturing toward Prince Archie. The moment was so quick that many in the Abbey missed it, but those who caught it noted the tension in Camilla's tone and the way Meghan stiffened in response.
Are you suggesting in some way that the king and his heir of this country should plan their schedules around what Meghan and Harry are doing on the Renegade Tour?
Meghan's reaction was calm but deliberate. She leaned toward Archie and whispered something softly, likely reassuring him. Harry, too, seemed to catch wind of the interaction and turned briefly toward his son before redirecting his attention to the front of the Abbey. To most observers, it seemed like a minor moment, easily overlooked in the grandeur of the coronation. But for those familiar with the royal family's dynamics, it was anything but ordinary. Camilla's tone and body language suggested an attempt to assert authority, even in the middle of one of the most important events in royal history. As the ceremony continued, it became clear that this was not an isolated incident. Camilla's actions throughout the day seemed to emphasize her new role as queen consort, a position that not everyone in the family had fully embraced. Meghan's interactions with Camilla were cordial but distant, and Harry appeared to be caught between his role as a son and his loyalty to his wife and children. These undercurrents of tension were not lost on those present in the Abbey. Archie, though young, seemed aware of the atmosphere around him. After the quiet exchange between Meghan and Camilla, he adjusted his posture, sitting up straighter in his seat. His composed demeanor drew subtle glances from those seated nearby. Despite his age, Archie's presence carried weight, a reminder of his place in the royal lineage. What happened next, however, was completely unexpected and would mark a turning point in the day's events. As the family prepared to rise for a ceremonial bow to the king, Archie made a subtle but noticeable move. Instead of immediately following his parents' lead, he paused. Observers noted that he turned to Meghan and spoke softly. Lip readers later suggested his words were, "I'll stand, but not for her." His statement was quiet, but it carried immense significance. Archie then rose, performed the required bow to King Charles, and stood tall beside his parents. But he noticeably refrained from looking in Camilla's direction or acknowledging her in any way. This deviation from the usual protocol was subtle but impactful. To some, it might have appeared as a simple hesitation from a young child, but to those who understood the context, it was much more. Archie's actions seemed deliberate, a quiet yet powerful statement that set him apart. The moment rippled through the Abbey, with those seated nearby exchanging glances and murmurs. Even the choir seemed to falter slightly as the tension in the room became palpable. Harry and Meghan, seated beside Archie, maintained their composure, though Harry's clenched jaw and Meghan's tight smile suggested they were acutely aware of how important the moment was. Camilla, seated prominently in her regal robes, appeared unfazed at first, but a slight shift in her expression hinted at her recognition of what had just occurred. The dynamic in the room had shifted, and Archie's subtle act of defiance had not gone unnoticed. What was meant to be a day of celebration had taken on an entirely different tone. Don't miss the next scene where things get even more interesting.
I'm not angry anymore. There are things that will still anger me, but I'm not angry anymore because I am exactly where I'm supposed to be.
The royal family's response to the altercation. When Archie made his unexpected statement at the coronation, the reactions from the royal family were as varied as you could imagine. Each member seemed to process the moment in their own way, some quietly, some with a bit more visible surprise. Catherine, always the steady and composed presence, remained calm. Her eyes briefly met Archie's, before she gently placed her hand on his shoulder. The gesture wasn't so much an act of correction, but more a silent way of offering reassurance. If there was any tension, it wasn't visible. The Princess of Wales is known for maintaining a sense of balance, especially in front of the cameras. Her subtle support in that moment was likely a way to show her son that he had room to express himself, but also a reminder of the royal norms he would need to understand as he grew. Prince William, meanwhile, looked momentarily startled. The brief flicker of surprise in his eyes quickly gave way to a more neutral expression, as he did his best to keep his emotions in check. William's reaction, unlike Catherine's, was less about offering reassurance and more about maintaining the expected royal decorum. Later on, insiders shared that William had spoken about how Archie was his own person, a child who was confident, but also one who had yet to grasp the full weight of his royal responsibilities. It wasn't that he was upset by Archie's words, but rather that he was processing the moment in his own way, especially considering the pressures that lay ahead for his son as the younger generation's expectations continue to grow. Then there was Camilla. The Queen Consort's response was almost instantly noticeable. She was visibly taken aback, clearly surprised by Archie's behavior. As a step-grandmother, she's not been as involved with the children as some of the others in the family, and it showed. While she might have expected the usual signs of respect and protocol from the younger royals, Archie's sudden boldness was a little harder to digest. Her poised smile wavered for just a moment, as if she wasn't sure how to react. She looked over at Catherine, perhaps expecting an intervention or a soft correction, but when that didn't come, Camilla seemed to retreat into herself, her smile tightening just slightly. It was clear that this was a situation where her authority was being tested. As for the other members of the royal family who were there, their responses were a mix of curiosity and intrigue. Some guests, who had long known the family dynamics, noted that this moment was telling in its own right. They saw in Archie a child who wasn't afraid to voice his thoughts, even in the most formal of settings. He was growing up in a world where speaking his mind wouldn't always be discouraged, and some even whispered about how his openness might eventually play into his role as a future royal. Royal watchers, ever eager to dissect each public moment, were quick to jump in with their own interpretations. Some saw Archie's boldness as a reflection of how his parents, Catherine and William, were raising their children with a sense of independence. It wasn't just about following tradition. It was about forging a new way forward while still respecting the monarchy's framework. Archie, they argued, was perhaps a glimpse into a future where royal family members would be able to hold their own without being confined by centuries-old protocols. This didn't mean defiance, but more of an evolving form of confidence that would have its place in the family's future. Not everyone saw it as a simple sign of strength. Some commentators viewed Archie's words and actions as a sign of a deeper awareness of the monarchy's internal complexities. After all, he wasn't just another royal child. He was also one of the first to experience the pressures of modern royal life. The spotlight on him and his siblings was intense, and it was clear that Archie, at a young age, was becoming more attuned to the world around him. His comments seemed to cut through the usual royal gloss and reveal a layer of self-awareness that was unexpected for someone his age. Meanwhile, the relationship between Catherine and Camilla were more subtle, but just as telling. Catherine's quiet resilience stood in stark contrast to Camilla's more overt attempt at maintaining control. The Queen Consort, in a bid to keep things orderly, may have seen Archie's interruption as something to be corrected. But Catherine, while not exactly disagreeing with Camilla's authority, showed her support for her son in a way that didn't undermine either the royal tradition or her role as a mother. She was calm and composed, allowing her son the space to express himself while keeping the royal dignity intact. For Camilla, the situation was more complicated. As someone who had spent years earning her place within the royal family, Camilla's attempts to assert authority, especially in public settings, weren't always well received. She was, after all, still navigating her role as queen consort, and moments like these only seemed to remind the public of her somewhat fraught history with the family. While many royal observers noted that Camilla's reaction was perfectly appropriate given her position, it was hard to ignore the underlying tension between her and the younger generation of royals, particularly Catherine. Camilla's discomfort wasn't just about Archie's behavior. It was about a broader struggle for authority that was quietly taking place. For someone like Archie, who is part of a royal family that's striving to modernize and adapt to a changing world, this moment was one of many where the lines between tradition and personal expression would blur. His position as the first son of a new era, far removed from the traditional heir, gives him the freedom to navigate things in a way that is both unique and telling. For him, the royal family is a place where rules can be questioned, but also where respect for tradition still carries weight. This moment with Archie also showed the different ways in which Catherine and Camilla approached their roles in the family. Catherine, as a mother, was unshaken by her son's outburst. She didn't force him into submission or try to change his approach. Instead, she let him be himself, while still maintaining her sense of dignity and respect for the royal setting. Camilla, on the other hand, struggled with balancing authority and grace. She wasn't entirely comfortable with the situation, but that might have been more about her place in the family rather than the specific incident with Archie. As the public digested the moment, there was much speculation about what it meant for the future of the monarchy. Archie's candidness might have been unsettling to some, but it was also a reflection of the changing times. The royal family has always been seen as a symbol of continuity, but as the world evolves, so too must the royals. Archie's behavior, while not an overt act of rebellion, spoke to a generation that is more in tune with its own voice. And whether they liked it or not, the royal family would have to find a way to adapt to this new reality. The grand finale is coming. Get ready to be amazed.
I think the whole plan that Harry and Meghan have is a really problematic one because they're talking about stepping back. Their critics would argue about having their cake and eat it.
Other family conflicts Camilla has been involved in. Camillas' tensions within the royal family didn't start recently. They go back to her marriage to King Charles III. Since becoming the queen consort, she has faced ongoing challenges, many of which come from her role as Charles's second wife. Her rise to power hasn't been smooth, with some family members openly struggling with her new role. For many, the legacy of Princess Diana is a tough legacy to shake off. Prince William and Prince Harry, the sons of Diana, have both had their own issues with Camilla. While they've been polite publicly, it's clear there's underlying tension. William, in particular, has never been fully comfortable with Camilla's place in the royal family. There have been reports that during talks about King Charles's coronation, William expressed concerns about not honoring Diana enough. He wanted to make sure her memory was acknowledged, something he felt wasn't being done when Camilla's role took center stage. Harry, on the other hand, has had a much more intense fallout with Camilla. His memoir, Spare, was particularly scathing. Harry described Camilla as a villain, accusing her of leaking negative stories about him and Meghan to the press in order to boost her own image. That claim only fueled the media storm around her and added more fuel to the fire of public opinion that was already suspicious of her relationship with the tabloids. Although Camilla has denied any involvement in spreading these stories, the damage to their relationship was done. Their once cordial interactions are now strained. and it's clear that Harry's opinion of her hasn't softened. Camilla's tension with Kate Middleton has also been notable. On the surface, Kate and Camilla seem to get along fine, but insiders say there's more to it. One incident that stood out was when Camilla made comments about how Kate was handling her royal duties. Apparently, Camilla thought Kate was being too reserved in her public appearances and should be more outgoing. Kate wasn't happy about the criticism, and it caused a rift between the two. This subtle clash showed how Camilla's position in the royal family isn't without its challenges, even with those who are also deeply invested in the monarchy. Camilla's influence over Charles's decisions has sometimes rubbed others the wrong way, especially when it came to the coronation. There were whispers that Camilla pushed for more recognition of her own family members, which some saw as a move to elevate them at the expense of William and Kate. As the Princess of Wales, Kate has always been viewed as the future of the monarchy. So for her to feel sidelined in such a crucial moment shows the subtle but significant shifts that are happening behind closed doors. But Camilla's difficulties don't end with the younger royals. Prince Andrew, one of the most controversial figures in the royal family, has had his own issues with her. He reportedly didn't want her to become queen consort at all, and Andrew, who had his own scandals to deal with, felt that Camilla's rise undermined his mother's legacy. In private, he's been heard calling her unfit for the role, which caused more tension in an already complicated family relationship. Even Princess Anne, who is known for being one of the more independent and straightforward royals, has had her moments of resistance to Camilla's ideas. Anne reportedly dismissed some of Camilla's suggestions on modernizing royal traditions, saying that the family had been doing things a certain way for centuries and weren't going to change now. This attitude showed that Anne, like other members of the family, wasn't entirely on board with some of Camilla's influence over royal matters. Even with the challenges, Camilla has tried to engage these family relationships with grace, but her attempts to carve out her own space within the royal family have faced resistance at almost every turn. Even as she has worked to modernize the monarchy alongside Charles, her every move has been scrutinized, and the tension with key family members continues to exist beneath the surface. Do you think Camilla's anger was justified? Let us know what you think in the comments section. Do not forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Click on the next video displayed on your screen. You will enjoy it.